All right, good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed members of the Planning Board and valued community representatives, I welcome you all to this evening's assembly of the Saco Planning Board. As chair, it is my privilege to convene this gathering dedicated to the thoughtful planning and development of our community. Today, we come together with a shared commitment to shaping the future in our city that in our city in a manner that reflects our values, respects our heritage, and fulfills the needs of our residents both now and in the future. Our agenda tonight contains important matters, each requiring our careful consideration, expertise, and collaboration. As we engage in our deliberations, let us remember the profound impact these decisions have on the lives of all, keeping in mind we're residents like you. It is our duty to maintain transparency, fairness, and inclusivity in our proceedings, ensuring that the voices of all are heard and respected. Together, we must embrace the responsibility entrusted to us by our community, working diligently and thoughtfully to chart a course that fosters growth, prosperity, and harmony. With that, I would like to call this meeting of the Tuesday, August 19th, 2025 Saco Planning Board to order. I look forward to the productive discussions and meaningful outcomes that lie ahead. With us this evening, myself, Matt Provenzel, the chair of the board, and to my left, our vice chair, Joyce Lurie Clark, along with planning board members Jeff Brucho, Camilla White, and Catherine Palini, along with my right here, Jim Moyer. Our staff members this evening with us are our assistant city planner, Shannon Chisholm, our city planner, Emily Cole-Prescott, and our planning compliance manager, Lisa Harmon. And our Ward 5 Councilor, Phil Hatch, as well. With that, we will move to our first item on the agenda, which is a review of our prior meeting minutes. And we have a note here that our August digital copies that you can get online as well. With that, we'll move to our next item, which is our public comment period. This is an opportunity for any residents or members of the public to come before the board and discuss any planning matters. We'd like to ask that any project-specific matters be held to those application review periods. And with that, if anyone would like to speak this evening, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and we will collect comments and address them appropriately. All right, and with that, no participation this evening. We will move to our next item on the agenda this evening, item 6. This is our applications for review and public hearings this evening. Our first item is 6A, and this is 12 and 14 Beth Johnson Way. This is map 60, lots 15 through 18-1, and map 60, lot 20. And this is a site plan review for a new elementary and primary school with associated site improvements. This is presented by the Saco School Department, and we have an application of completeness review this evening, and this project is located within the Portland Road zoning district. Board members, any conflicts or disclosures on this item before we begin? All right, and with that, anything to add, Emily?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've been reviewing this application. City staff, we provided consolidated comments back to the Saco school team. It's an exciting project for the city of Saco, as there's been a lot of public input already on the site location as well as on the approval of the referendum question. The school location will be at Millbrook and Portland Roads in the Portland Road zoning district. It'll be consolidated schools as indicated on here. We have reviewed the application checklist. We provided that to you. There are easements that are being worked out between Saco schools and the city of Saco. Off-site improvements and the traffic movement permit. In this case, the traffic movement permit has already been issued by the state DOT. Just a friendly reminder, we processed a tree clearing application back in February, and the property has been cleared. The future expansion areas, there are some expansion areas on the plan you might want to ask some questions about just for future programming. Required permitting going forward, we'll have the local site plan review here with the planning board. The site location of development review is a cumulative scheme of development, so they will be considered as part of the Millbrook Business Park cumulative scheme, so they'll have some additional impacts for the permitting process that Jonah, their project manager, can speak to. That site location of development review and NERPA permitting is happening with the state level, so you are only doing the local site plan review here, not the state SLOTA review. Traffic movement permit, mentioned that was issued. They'll need state level approvals as appropriate from Department of Education, and then relevant local permitting with the Code Enforcement Department. So this evening you're asked to determine whether the application is complete, and then to schedule the public hearing for, we have September 16th as the date here. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Emily. Board members, any questions for Emily at this time?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Jim.
I just have one question, Emily, and I noticed in one of the earlier applications, there was a waiver that was requested regarding the building height. And my question is whether or not, I mean, that may not be on the table anymore, which is great if it's not, but if it is that a matter that the planning board can waive, or is that something that the zoning board of appeals would deal with as a variance?
Yep, so I think you want to ask the applicant about that, just for clarity purposes. It's not relevant really to the application completeness review, and usually any dimensional standards go to the zoning board of appeals for variance process. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jim. Any other thoughts or questions from board members for staff at this time? All right, and with that, we'd like to have the applicant come up and give their presentation if they have one prepared.
Good evening, everyone. Jeremy Ray, Superintendent of Schools. Certainly the very technical stuff will be answered by Jonah from Oak Point Associates, but just as a quick overview of where we are in the school project. As you know, we've been here several times. We've talked about tree clearing. We've been out to vote where almost 80% of the public supported the project. We are at a point where we have been improved 2 times by the state board, receiving our final concept approval from the State Board of Education for the design of the building, the layout of the building, making sure we meet all of their specifications, and basically are hoping to put out bid packets in the very near future so that we can try to make that deadline as we work with both different parties for a groundbreaking that we, knock on wood, will be at the end of October. So we've had a lot of exciting things going on our end of the project from the educational and state side of view, and Jonah will be here to answer any of the local questions, or I can answer some of those that are less technical for your review tonight. So I'll hand it over to Jonah and any questions that you have about the project, unless there's something from a higher level that you would like to ask as me as the superintendent.
Great, thank you.
This is the stressful part, waiting for the thing to connect. Hey, look at that, we got it. All right, yeah, as Jeremy said, my name's Jonah DeWaters. I'm a civil engineer with Oak Point Associates. I'm one of the engineers working on the school project. Really exciting to be here. This is kind of the end of a really long road that we've gone down to get to this point for the school. Like Emily said, we are submitting here for 2 elementary schools on a site that's going to be located on Route 1, the intersection, kind of behind the intersection of Route 1 and Millbrook Road. The schools are a primary school, which is pre-K and K, elementary school, which is grades 1 through 5. This here kind of gives you an idea of where this is. Sort of off the page to the left is the car dealership and the intersection of Millbrook Road and Route 1. Figured I'd throw this in here so you can get a sense of kind of where we've been and where we're headed. So this is the full process for a state-funded school project. You may recall this project is largely state-funded. Roughly 3/4 of the project is funded at the state level, with some local money being kicked in for some things at the elementary school and for the primary school itself. Right now, we are right in between step 17 and 18. We're tracking putting this out to bid shortly, and if everything goes well, we're hoping to start construction here in the fall, kind of late fall, early winter. The construction schedule, like Emily mentioned, we were here back in January to get site plan approval for tree clearing. That was done in February and March. Coming up next will be the school construction, starting in the fall and running through the fall of 28 with a school opening for the 28-29 school year. Also, as part of this project, just to make things interesting, we have a couple of off-site projects happening. One will be some significant changes to the Route 1, Spring Hill Road, Millbrook Road intersection to provide some safety enhancements, provide turn lanes essentially in every direction. We'll also be extending an existing sidewalk on Millbrook Road to run from the end, which is near the Millbrook Road Route 1 intersection, to the site entrance, which is Beth Johnston Way, kind of between I think, 10 and 12 Millbrook Road. At the same time, on Route 1, the DOT has a paving project that's supposed to happen in 2026. Through discussions with the DOT, and this just happened last week, the DOT has suggested that we lump our work that we were planning on doing on Route 1 in with their project, so it'll go out with the DOT's project. That work would be for the site entrance on Route 1 and for some sidewalks that run from the Route 1 site entrance up the street to the Pine Haven mobile home park. So that's what that last bullet is, and that's a new one. So really what we're looking at is almost 4 projects. One's done, one's a big one. They're all big, but they're all going to be happening sort of on their own schedules. We're not completely sure exactly when the Route 1 Millbrook Road intersection project will go out to bid, but it will be completed prior to the school opening in 2028. That's one of the requirements of the traffic movement permit. So Emily mentioned most of these already, but we have a number of municipal permits we needed to get for this, none the least of which is the SLOTA amendment for the work. It's an amendment because it's considered part of the Millbrook Road Business Park, which got a SLOTA roughly 2005. We also have an NRPA permit, and that's because we have some wetland impacts on the site. Because they're cumulative, they build on top of the wetland impacts already in the Millbrook Road Business Park, which is why it's a Tier 3 permit. We're not actually impacting anywhere near 43,000 square feet of wetland. It's more like 15,000 square feet. Few permit by rules, that's for work near Millbrook and a couple of intermittent streams on the site. We've also worked with pretty closely with the Army Corps of Engineers on wetland impacts. That's part of their general permit. We actually got that permit back in May. The applications to the DEP for the top 3, the SLOTA, the PBR, and the NRPA permit were submitted in April. So the last 2 are site plan review and DOT approval for the work on Route 1. We're working with the DOT and with the city on those. We've gotten comments already, working on getting responses to those, and looking forward to more discussions. All right, some of this is in the packet, but I figured it'd be nice to kind of run through it. So we've got two schools here. The elementary school is going to be 2 stories, roughly 106,000 square foot footprint, 1,100 students, 209 staff members, and this school is mostly state funded. The primary school, which is pre-K and K, 60,000 square foot, 1 story, 382 students, 59 staff members, and that's locally funded. And the local money was approved by referendum last June. As far as the site goes, we are a 57-acre site, roughly. Part of that was purchased by the school department as part of the referendum approval. We're going to be having 313 parking spaces, and that's to satisfy the state's requirement of 1 parking space per full-time equivalent staff member, plus a few visitor spaces. We're also going to have some bus parking and queuing on the site for 16 school buses. Here comes the fun part, if you guys can read that. So this is a site plan, a prettied up version of the site plan. You'll see at the bottom of the screen there, the main entrance is off of Millbrook Road via Beth Johnston Way. From there, parents enter and turn right and queue up along. There's a road that kind of wraps around to the right and wraps around the side of the parking lot. That's the queuing space for both schools. There's a large parking lot there that's intended for staff and visitors. On the top of the site, we've got a secondary entrance only for northbound traffic turning right from Route 1. Incidentally, that was a DOT requirement, northbound, right in only. The intent there is it's going to be used for busing and for service vehicles to access the rear of the 2 schools, which you can kind of see all the yellow rectangles. Those are school buses. So busing will happen, bus pickup and drop-off will happen on the opposite side of the school from parent pickup and drop-off, which is important to keep the traffic separated for safety and for efficiency. In the middle of that, there's a smaller staff parking lot to kind of help with anybody that's staff members that get there early or know how to get in and beat the traffic. Service entrances are also on the rear of the school. Can also sort of make it out on there. There's a small gray rectangle to the right of the parking lot. That's a future maintenance building, so that's just a slab for a maintenance building that will be built in the future. Touching briefly on the future expansion that Emily mentioned, one of the things that the DOE requires, that's the Department of Education, requires when we do these schools is planning for future additions should they be necessary. So we've got some future expansion areas. They're off the ends of the buildings on the left and the right. So the primary school would be additional classroom space to the left, kind of in that green space between the road, between the bypass road that connects the Route 1 and Millbrook Road entrances. Elementary school future expansion is on the opposite side, so on the right, on the green space to the right. Part of this project is also playgrounds and play space, which you can see sort of wrapping for the elementary school, the right side, and then a smaller playground for the primary school, which is on the left side of the parking lot. Now to the boring stuff, the utilities. Most of the utilities are coming off of Route 1 and going into the school. So utilities for this would be water, sewer, and underground electric and communications. The sewer line is a force main line because this is actually downhill from Route 1. Water service, we worked with Maine Water. There's a bit of a flow and pressure issue out here. They're low. So what we've done is work with Maine Water and an independent consultant to provide a cross connection between existing underground infrastructure in Route 1 and Millbrook Road to avoid needing to have some sort of large cistern on site to provide adequate fire protection. Electric and communications similarly come off of Route 1, underground into the north sides of each building. Those are the red lines. And then the building is going to be heated and cooled using geothermal systems. The well fields for each, the primary school well field is located under the staff parking lot, kind of in the middle of everything on the north side. The elementary school well field is going to be underneath the soccer field, which is to the bottom right, just to the right of the larger parking lot. The service entrances for both will be on the north side of the building. So the elementary school well field runs kind of north around the eastern side of the building, so up the back and then in. And it's pretty exciting to be able to use geothermal on a project this size. We were able to take advantage, hopefully, of some pretty significant tax breaks to help fund that and help provide the city with a way to get air conditioning and heating and save some money at the same time, which is really nice. Real quickly, the intersection. This is the Route 1 Millbrook Road, Spring Hill Road intersection. North is to the right on this. You can see this is how the intersection looks now, and essentially what we'll be doing is adding a turn lane in every direction. So when we're all done, it's the yellow. All the road work is happening in the right-of-way. We're not needing to acquire extra property to fit the turn lanes. We're able to fit everything inside the existing right-of-way. So the easements that were mentioned are mostly temporary easements for grading that'll happen as part of this. There's some utility pole relocation that we're working through too that would also require a few easements. The only permanent easement is actually up the street on Route 1. There's an existing storm drain line that doesn't have an easement that should, and we need to extend it as part of this about 3 feet. So there's a permanent drainage easement sort of to make up for the fact that there isn't already one. That's the short version of what we're doing. Happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Great, thank you. Board members, any questions for the applicant on the application for completeness review this evening? Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That future maintenance building was, it's a little hard for me to pick out exactly where that is likely to be. Could you just show that to us again?
If you guys can, you can't see my cursor. I'll point to it on the screen here.
Sure. Okay. And a separate matter, there's a lot of sidewalk work that'll be done on Route 1 in conjunction with changing the intersection. Are those sidewalks to be running on both sides of Route 1?
No. The sidewalks that are there will basically be maintained. We are bound by what the DOT requires for work, and they didn't require any new sidewalks in that area. There was some discussion about planning for a future sidewalk. There's a piece that's missing on the west side of Route 1 where the car dealership is. From a budget standpoint, we couldn't include it in the project, but through discussions, I think we're going to plan for it to be there very shortly after this project is completed. So it'll be a flat spot with some grass that just needs to be peeled off and paved.
That's great. And following up on the last question I have, followed up on a question I asked the city planner earlier about the height of the building, and so I guess that's going to be a matter for the zoning board. And have you already submitted a request for a variance or some other treatment from the zoning board on that?
We haven't. So the building height question is interesting. So because this site is partially in the mobile home park overlay district, there's I believe it's a 35-foot maximum building height. The building itself is actually 30 feet, but there's one spot where there's building access via an enclosed stair that puts it over, which is required for OSHA. Mm-hmm. So that's the part we have to work through, and I need to work through that with Emily and figure out exactly what we need for that.
So that's not part of our review here, and that's a separate matter you'll need to deal with the zoning board or other authorities.
Okay.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you, Jim. Any other thoughts? Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to touch base on the completeness for the wetland review. We had a peer review from Normando Associates on January 30th of 2025, and they were pretty open that, hey, you know, it's not the ideal time to be identifying this, but their issue was they felt like maybe the wetlands were a little larger. And it seems like you had your consultants go back, Response Watershed Resource consultants go back on August 8th. And so that has all been ironed out. It's probably more for city staff. I mean, so, because you obviously submitted it in the packet, we saw it. I was just a little shocked because Normando seems like they're usually right on point with everything, but they did say that it was a little difficult because of the weather, and that was about the time of our site walk, and we know it was obviously pretty cold, but so more for city staff, they're 100% that delineation of the wetlands is satisfactory.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
We had Norman Doe go back out on site, and I believe they actually met with the project team's consultant as well, and so we should be getting a memo from Norman Doe with their final review shortly. I believe everything was fine. Usually I get a phone call if there's a concern.
Yeah, I got a sneak preview from our consultant that confirmed that basically all the wetlands within our project area didn't change.
Okay.
My other question, the city planner touched on, was the SLOTA review. I felt like it might be a conflict, but she's already cleared up that that'll be done by the the DEP. That was all I had. I felt like all the requirements had been fulfilled, and even if this wetland delineation was still in question, you know, it's been filed as part of the application, so I felt like we were in a sound position to accept the application as complete.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Any other thoughts from board members? Joyce?
I just had a curiosity question, which doesn't really relate to application completeness. Is this primary school large enough now that all of the pre-K students will be able to attend and there won't be a lottery anymore?
So excuse me, we typically have about 170 to 200 K students each year, depending on the year, it fluctuates, and we're going to have 12 classrooms of 16 that will be available in this building. So we shouldn't have to, because we know that not every family is going to accept pre-K. I think some people still prefer a little bit of half day, and then there's the families who have maybe a really good daycare situation and both kids are going to be there, and they say, I think I just want to do one drop-off. So I think that we should be able to eliminate any lottery when we're in this situation. I think this year, Meg, our waiting list was around a dozen? Less than a dozen kids who wanted, probably our families who are in the halftime would have taken full-time slots if they were available. But we feel like this will be a good fit for us.
Large enough. These are large enough to accommodate some
Correct.
growth.
Unless something drastic happens, we feel like we've been okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other board member thoughts?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So as a Saco mom, I very much appreciate this project, particularly as it relates to the consolidation and kind of streamlining the educational opportunities for these kids. So I just wanted to make a comment about how excited I am about this project. And then as part of the application, I saw that some of the existing school buildings, it's actually in an effort to kind of build upon, providing new spaces for these students. Right now, a lot of the schools are older buildings, and this would really provide a really great space for kids to learn. And the way it's been designed, Jonah, very nicely done. And just, it seems like you guys put a lot of thought and effort into finding what's that kind of complementary component to, supporting the parents of Saco and the administrators of the organization. So thank you very much.
And just to hit on that piece, certainly as a parent here in Saco, I had kids at Young School and then at Burns School. And so I'll note before I was the superintendent, you'd drop off at Young School and you'd fight the madness of the line there. And then you'd be that awful parent that dropped off in the parking lot of the library because you had to try to get back across town. Your parents are going to be so lucky that for 7 years you're going to have children on one site. And to think about 3 young kids where you do one drop-off, that is going to be amazing for families. And I think the other piece that we don't recognize enough, and certainly in my other role in Biddeford, we were making some changes, is transitions between schools is not only challenging for families and kids in the process. But your relationship with a family and what's going on in their lives and a kid, this is going to be really important, and it's going to be really exciting to think about how even after your first 2 years, you're just really, 15 or 20 feet across the walkway, and staff will know each other. And this is going to be really exciting when we finally open those doors.
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts from board members? So one item that Jim had mentioned was that waiver, and just real quick, Emily, I agree with Jim. I think that waiver needs to be, or the question needs to be worked out. Maybe staff can help the applicant. Is that piece to the application? I'm trying to find it again here, the waivers. It's within section 179, but then it talks about the waivers in 230. Is that a glitch on mine? Is that correct?
Regarding the height waiver, I'm not seeing this as a major concern because, yes, they're in an overlay district, but I believe we can work through it. Staff can give an opinion to the school project team specific to that item.
Sure, okay. So we'll disregard that waiver and that'll be worked through.
We will work through it with the applicant and determine what the next step is, if anything is necessary.
Correct, okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I thought there was very clear standards in our height ordinance about spires and access that basically, would make this a non-point. I mean, if it's just the service corridor, so I think the plan is right on cue that they can work through this without us having a waiver for height if it's just that one required rooftop access structure. I think there's very clear ways around that.
I agree.
Mr. Chair, to sort of put this on the table, I would move that we find the application complete. As Jeff noted, with the exception of that waiver question, which we've resolved, it looks like all the boxes have been checked, and I agree with Camille. It's a fine project, and a lot of work's been done, and it's been done well. So I move that we determine the application complete.
Great, thank you for the motion, Jim.
I will second that motion.
Second by Jeff, thank you. Any additional discussion on finding the application complete? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0.
So, Mr. Chair, I move to schedule a public hearing for September 16th.
I will second that.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion on scheduling a public hearing for September 16th, 2025? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. Great, thank you. We'll see you on the 16th.
Thanks, guys.
All right, moving along, our next item on the agenda this evening is item 6B. This is 1040 Portland Road, map 64, lot 9-2, and this is a continued application review for conditional use application for a state authorized inspection station. This is presented by Berube Equipment Rental, and again, this is a public hearing, continued application review. This is within the Portland Road zoning district. Board members, any conflicts or disclosures on this item? And Emily, anything to add? Shannon? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So there were a couple of questions from the last meeting in which we discussed this project. The first one being, what are the existing uses on site? And what is the underlying reason that this company is going through their conditional use review process? So I spoke with David Toomey, who is the Director of Code Enforcement and also the arbitrator of the code. And so we spoke together, and then I summarized his words into an email that was within the packet. And some of the existing uses on site include the two-family dwelling use, because there are two duplexes on the site. The retail use, which covers the rental of the heavy vehicle equipment. And then an accessory use, which allows the company to repair their own equipment. And then because the accessory use is only for the repair of their own equipment, them adding the state inspection option for their clients requires them to establish a automotive repair services use on the property, which is not currently there. So I'm hoping that that kind of clears those questions up. Happy to answer additional questions if there are any. And then one of the other questions that came up at the last meeting was, where are you going to park vehicles while they're waiting to be serviced? And the applicants submitted a couple photos of the area in its current state and an aerial photo of where things are going to be parked. So happy to answer any other questions, and draft conditions and findings have also been prepared for consideration by the board after findings, or after the public hearing. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Shannon. Board members, any questions for Shannon at this time? All right, we'll turn it over to the applicant. Anything to add, or?
No, she covered it very well. And her email too was very great. So we're just applying to, we rent equipment, work on, while we're renting them equipment, some customers will work on theirs while they're renting one from us. And our other customers also have dump trucks and stuff like that. So we're trying to do this so we can be able to put inspection stickers on their trucks. Because right now we can't. In order to do that, we had to become approved automotive service station, but we're not like a car dealership. That was the worry from the code enforcement when they would just give it to us. They were worried that it's going to be all full-blown sales and, you know, everybody off the street coming in to get stickers, when it's just our customer base. That's all we're trying to service and be a one-stop shop for them all. So.
All right, great, thank you. Board members, any questions for the applicant? Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Berube, we had, I believe we talked about at the last meeting, a condition of approval for consistency and public safety and environmental safety, a condition of approval that would basically limit the amount of time that a plaque-carded vehicle might be left on your premises for inspections, so whether it be oil or gasoline or explosives, right? And I know you seemed pretty specific about your current client base and mentioned mostly dump trucks, but we have had other businesses in the Portland Road District, and that was a concern, and we were able to do something along those lines. I was kind of thinking a condition that would state that no vehicles that require DOT plaque carding due to loaded cargo or that have been, or that were required to be plaque carded due to the cargo, but have not been washed out by a licensed facility, may be parked on the site for longer than 24 hours, and that this site shall not be deemed as a safe haven. Basically, the intent that I would be proposing that is that we're protecting the neighbors and we're protecting the environmental runoff so that you can still do those types of interactions. You can still do a state inspection. We just don't want it stored on your property longer than 24 hours. I don't know if it's something the board has support of. I don't know if that would create any hardship for you, something worded along those lines.
No?
No, it won't. I mean, just to be clear, right now, with the way our insurance is structured, we cannot have any hazardous tanker trucks, oil trucks come onto our property loaded, right? They cannot come on loaded unless they're making a delivery. And so as a condition of doing a state inspection, they cannot bring these trucks onto our property if there's any type of material in there, propane, oil, gasoline. They have to be empty to come onto our property. That's going to be a condition that we have for our customers. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we are very concerned with the safety aspect of that as well, and also the environmental impact of that. If something were to happen or there would be a spill, it would be devastating for us as a small business. So that's one of the ways we try to protect ourselves.
Absolutely. So it kind of, in my opinion, sounds like the condition that I like to put in is exactly parallel with the condition policies you already have in place.
Right.
So I think it's just good to protect the city. So if there's a transfer at some point, to a different ownership and they want to maintain running that business, is that will be overhanging as a condition from the city. So I just want to make sure you didn't object and maybe give the board a little time to think about it, but that would be, I think, something to make it fair as far as what we're requiring of these businesses, particularly in the Portland Road District. Was kind of my thought. And the other one I was just kind of working through, looking at the draft findings of facts. I didn't know if we might want to consider when we start reviewing condition number 9.3 or finding of fact 9.3, if we want to start putting, some of them we don't have the conditions met, and then oftentimes in drafts we're stating that, hey, we as a board have found this condition met, if we want to add that in. But that's something that, once we start doing the line by line, I think we can address. But those were my only two notes that I had. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Any other thoughts from board members?
Yes, Mr.
Joyce.
I mean, so just to clarify, the condition that Jeff read about placarded vehicles, would that be acceptable to you if we can
Absolutely.
add it in?
And it would be no hardship at all for us. It's right in line with our current policies. So. Just the way it is now, it couldn't be loaded.
Any other board member thoughts? So this evening, we do have a public hearing scheduled.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to open the public hearing.
Thank you for the motion, Jim.
I'll second.
Second by Joyce. Any additional discussion on opening the public hearing? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to open a public hearing. If anyone is with us this evening that would like to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. We will collect comments and address them accordingly.
Mr. Chair, seeing no member of the public choosing to speak, I'll move to close the public hearing.
I will second.
Thank you for the motion, Jim, and the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion on the motion? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to close the public hearing. All right, back to the board. Any final thoughts or questions for the applicant? Jeff mentioned a condition of approval that we discussed with the applicant. The applicant seems acceptable and amendable to that. I don't see any issues with it as well. I'm not sure what other board members think. And we do have that item on the findings of fact that Jeff mentioned that I had as well, just for additional housekeeping. But with that, any other thoughts, concerns, questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, I agree with Jeff. I think that's a fine condition to add, and the applicant agrees. And part of the reason the applicant is conducting their business that way is because of their insurance, of course. But as Jeff noted, owners change, insurances change, and this will at least protect the city in the future, and it certainly won't hurt this applicant. So I would hope that Jeff's language could be condition of approval number 8. And perhaps he could, if necessary, read it into the record again. On the only other 2 points I want to make, on findings of fact number 8, I think we should have it state on August 19th, 2025, the board opened the public hearing where no members of the public chose to speak. And the board then closed the hearing, so hopefully those changes can be made. I kind of like that dark background. Wow, that's different. Nicely done. And then Jeff did bring out another good point on number 9.3. We should add a sentence to say this standard is met. But other than that, I don't. I think this applicant has met the requirements for a conditional use permit, so when the time's right, I'll make a motion to approve findings of fact and conditions of approval.
Great, thank you, Jim. Any other thoughts from board members? Jeff?
Well, I guess if I'll work on my motion for the additional condition, I just want to touch, I think that our language is just a little bit off, and I want to make sure is that I had language, and I'm not necessarily stuck on this, but that the vehicles must be, if they're not loaded with plat-carded cargo, they must be washed out by licensed facility before they came. You brought up a kind of a good point in saying, hey, we might have propane trucks that are coming that are essentially empty, which wouldn't necessarily be washed out. So I don't know, I don't want to create language that creates a particular hardship. Just want to keep the intent of where we're going. I just like a little feedback from the applicant. If I don't want to put that language in there if it's going to be a real
Yeah, I think
bind.
washed out might be a little, because then that's a whole different thing when the DEP comes in and, seals a tank and cleans it out. It's a whole process for sure. I don't know how you could, what would be the best way to word that? Just,
Maybe something along the lines of vacant of cargo, or? So it's the cleaning of the equipment that might be that's sort of the gray area.
The
But if
tank,
they're-
cleaning of the
cleaning
tank,
of the
like
tank.
the internal when it's
Sure.
emptied, like emptied out.
Because that wouldn't be something that's typical.
No.
Well, because it depends, right? So I was thinking on the regards of like a specialty hauler, like a Clean Harbors, right? They haul multiple wastes, and between each one of the wastes, they will typically have their trucks flushed out. So if you had residual and it was parked on their site longer than 24 hours, we'd probably still want that washed out. But if it's a daily commodity like propane and oil, I guess it's not as much of a concern, right? I mean, they don't wash it out. So I'm trying to keep the intent of, truly hazardous materials versus more consumable materials, and I don't want to make it too convoluted. So maybe we should just stick with the 24 hours if they're placarded and loaded, and, okay.
Jeff, would you mind reading that condition again for Emily to capture, and we can look at that draft?
Yes, so
When
I just
you're
made
ready.
a little quick little edit, and hopefully it makes sense. So my proposed draft condition of approval number 8 would read, no vehicles that require DOT placarding due to loaded cargo or that have been required to have placarding may be parked on the site for longer than 24 hours. This site shall not be deemed a safe haven. The safe haven is very specific to typically explosion-laden vehicles where the operator, the driver is supposed to be in attendance. Doesn't sound like it's anything they want to do, but it just also creates another layer that they wouldn't apply, or another owner wouldn't apply for that in the future. So.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry, I did not capture it in time.
Okay,
But I
so-
will listen to the record and get it to be what you said.
Okay, we can do it now. I mean, there's not a lot to it, but.
Yeah, let's just triple check it. That's okay.
Or that have been required to have placarding may be parked on the site for longer than 24 hours.
Yeah, placarding is placarding. It's one word. P-L-A-C-K, no, P-L-A-C-A-R-D-I-N-G, placarding. That's right, right? It looks, placard is P-L-A-C-A-R-D.
Take out a C and an A.
Yep.
Yes. All right, back to board members. Any additional thoughts on that additional condition of approval number 8?
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we adopt the findings of fact.
I will second.
Thank you for the motion, Jim, and the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion on the motion to accept the findings of fact as drafted? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Abstain.
I will vote yes. Motion passes 5-0 and 1 abstention.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we adopt the 8 conditions of approval.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Jim, and the second, Joyce. Any additional discussion on accepting or adopting the conditions of approval as drafted and amended this evening? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Abstain.
I vote yes. Motion passes 5-0 with 1 abstention.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we grant conditional use approval for automobile repair services at 1040 Portland Road, map 64, lot 9-2.
I will second.
Thank you for the motion, Jim, and the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion on the motion? Those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Abstain.
I will vote yes. That motion passes 5-0 with 1 abstention. Great, thank you, gentlemen. All right, moving to our next item this evening, we have item 6C. This is 109 Main Street, map 37, lot 5-1. And this is a continued public hearing and continued application review for a proposal to upgrade and expand the Factory Island substation. And this is presented by CMP and Avangrid. Board members, any disclosures or conflicts on this item? Anything to add, Emily?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. At the last meeting, there were a couple items, the primary one being the sidewalk easement discussion. We have since met with representatives of the real estate team from Avangrid as well as the project team for 109 Main Street. And we have worked out the next steps of what such a sidewalk easement and/or license agreement would look like. We have worked with CMP and Avangrid representatives as a city of Saco previously on other types of license agreements throughout the city. As far as an easement acquisition, that would require some additional work on Avangrid's end through statutory provisions that require such an easement to go through the Public Utilities Commission. So we certainly wouldn't have that wrapped up, but we did get additional information. We had a good meeting, and CMP and Avangrid want to continue working with the city on the downtown gateway concept plan. So with that in mind, I did update the draft findings just a bit to reference in places where a sidewalk easement specifically was referenced. I either updated it to note that they will work with the city, or I took out the reference to an easement, or reference an easement or license agreement. And then we also have a note here on condition number 15, and we can help you update that condition once you hear from the applicant as well. In the after the fact packet, it was just a week between meetings, so I think it's unavoidable in this case that we would have a little bit of information coming from the applicant in our after the fact packet. So we did include some emailed correspondence with the real estate team contact that we spoke with in the packet for your review, and a memo that they provided us as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Emily. Board members, any questions for Emily at this time? Camille.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions for Emily. In regards to the Gateway project and some of the budgeting associated with the landscaping that would impact this site, have you come up with a scope of work on like what you would program for landscaping to buffer? And then the follow-up question is, what is the budget moving forward in terms of maintaining it accordingly so that it doesn't get overgrown, et cetera? And what are the costs associated with it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to?
Sure.
So as far as the overall, the downtown gateway plan itself is on various sections of properties and on the roadway, so it spans from the bridge going into Biddeford all the way up toward Pepperell Square there. The improvements are going to be planned out through public comment periods, so it won't just be something that shows up one day. Right now, an estimate of that work is going to be about $2 million. I don't have the exact numbers, but I can certainly follow up separately for you. And there will be several sources of funding over several years for that project. One source of funding was a developer contribution from the Isle Avenue project. Another source of funding will be a grant that the city has received. I believe that was a UPI grant for $340 and change, but again, I can get you exact numbers. We recently presented this information to City Council, so it is out there on PowerPoint to the Council. So overall, it's going to be several steps, and as far as maintenance, the city would maintain it. We would have to, the portions on our city right of way, we would maintain. Certainly if we had public easements, we would maintain sections within those easements as well, I would imagine. So it wouldn't look overgrown. The point is to beautify the area, make it look more like a gateway when you're coming in from Biddeford.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. All right, and with that, we have the applicant with us this evening if they want to add anything to Emily's summary.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Nothing really to add other than just to, excuse me, to reiterate what Emily has pointed out. Certainly, we did engage in the communication with the city staff, and certainly we would like to work with the city in terms of what needs to be accomplished, as part of that gateway project, knowing that there are limitations within CMP, finding out after the fact that there are PUC requirements in terms of trying to grant that easement, and it's not as simple as just, agreeing from both parts. It still needs to be presented to the state.
Sure.
Yep.
All right, great. Board members, any questions for the applicant at this time? So we do, Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, we extended our public hearing to this evening, so we need to address that portion, and then we can talk about a few of our findings and conditions if the board would like. Is that correct? Thank
Yes.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll move to open the public hearing. Reopen the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jim. Any additional discussion on reopening the public hearing? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to open the public hearing. If anyone is with us this evening that would like to speak on this item, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and we will collect comments and address them at the conclusion as necessary.
Mr. Chair, seeing no one coming forward, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jim. Any additional discussion on the motion to close the public hearing? Those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to close the public hearing. With that, back to the board. Any final thoughts, questions, or concerns? We reviewed some findings of fact at our last meeting and made some edits. I see those in here for our review. I don't have any additional items on the findings. There are a few, so Emily, we have a few notes here for conditions of approval for items 7 and 8 and 15 as well that I have notes to discuss. Do you have anything to add on 7 and 8?
Okay, Mr. Chair, I guess that was kind of passed on to me. I had the opportunity to speak with Marcel DeRosiers, the city electrical inspector, today, because as you know, I brought up a little bit of a concern just because of our boilerplate conditions of approval and the wording and how it may apply to this applicant. The applicant's a little bit unique in the fact that they're a public utility, and as such, they don't oftentimes follow under the same regulations or the same standards. And you know, Marcel and I both agree that, you know, there are portions of the scope of work that we definitely feel like the town needs, you know, to be involved in. And there are also portions of the scope of work that are outside the town's description. As when we look under Chapter 87, we reference very specifically the National Electrical Code, which is a standard for most electrical installations. As a electrical utility, they're falling under the majority of the time the National Electrical Safety Code. It's another code which Marcel, as the authority having jurisdiction, doesn't really regulate. Obviously, they're coming before us with very thoroughly and vetted, heavily vetted engineered plans that's coming before us. If you look at the section in the National Electrical Code under substations, it's like half a page long, and it's basically giving the authority having jurisdiction the ability to review the engineered drawings. And so Marcel and I just wanted to make sure that we didn't, you know, make anything that was difficult or oversight. They're not necessarily required. There's exemptions in the main PUC that allow them to basically have non-licensed people because of the classification of what they're doing. So we've already taken out, staff has already taken out a lot of the stuff about licensing in that. So I believe that we kind of came up with the sense that we can modify probably just condition number 8 a little bit to free things up where the as-builts don't necessarily have to be presented by a licensed electrical engineer, a licensed electrician. They could have their engineering team make the submission for them. So we didn't have, you know, we'll do this draft condition, and I'm pretty sure Marcel's on board, and staff can bounce it back off of him. So this is kind of the language that we came up with. We were going to reference a little bit of Title 35A section 761 as exemptions for licensing, but I don't know if we need to. The big thing would be, I think if we worked on condition. Okay, so if we wanted to put that in, that's great. So it's section 761 under exemptions. That would be perfect as long as they comply with that, and that'll cover all of their contracted work for their team that might be actually doing the installation. And it gives Marcel the ability to review if anything were questioned for license ratios. So I think that's great. Let's put that in as number 7. Number 8, I think we kind of came up with something along all underground electrical services, telephone and cable must be installed under the supervision of a licensed professional electrical engineer, master electrician, or journeyman who works for a master electrician. So we're basically adding electrical engineer in there. Do you want me to slow down, or?
Can you repeat it, please?
Absolutely. So I think if we start with, do you have the original text of number 8? Do you want to just put that? So if we go under the supervision of, we're going to insert a licensed professional electrical engineer, comma, and then we'll leave the master electrician or journeyman. And then when we get down, we finish local ordinances, the electrician is responsible. We're going to have insert the electrician or electrical engineer will certify. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped on you a little bit. It's up the next sentence, where you are, yes. The electrician or electrical engineer will certify that all installation was done in compliance with the National Electrical Code, NFPA 70, comma, the National Electrical Safety Code, comma, and local ordinances. That way we'll cover both codes. It would cover this type of installation. The electrician or electrical engineer is responsible for obtaining permits and scheduling any and all inspections. I think that sums it up very accurately.
So all of that will be the new number 8, and what's under number 8 now will be eliminated? Is that right?
No, we would still, okay, so we inserted a 7, so, yeah, so number 7 is new language. Number 8, we need to keep, because that's important, that the town is very adamant about uniform equality, about documentation. Okay. So they're doing that in number 8, and then you're right, there is some duplication in number 9, but number 9 is basically saying who can do the installation, and then who's going to certify the as-built drawing. So that just, I think, sums it up.
So it's fine. All the numbers got pushed down 1. That's fine. Any thoughts from board members on those few edits?
I think those edits look great. And I think, as you pointed out, Mr. Chair, that we still have number 15 to deal with.
Yes, sir. And I believe Emily had some thoughts on that as well. Or unless the thoughts are what?
That should be just a correction. That should be now 16, correct?
It would be 16, correct. Yes, sir. Yep.
Ah, good point. Of course. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I can provide some draft ideas here.
Yes, please.
Prior to project closeout with the planning department, the applicant will coordinate a sidewalk license agreement or easement with the city of Saco along the property frontage to follow the downtown gateway concept plan.
That seems to do it, unless there are questions.
My question was just, how solid that was. So closeout would be the release of the financial guarantee as well. I didn't know if we should have a certificate of occupancy, if that gave their real estate team enough time. I just like having something in there that there is a circle back, that this isn't just going to kind of be forgotten. And I think that this language does cover that, so.
I think it's pretty good. I feel like I want the 5%. I want 5% more. Emily, how do we feel that condition, it says prior to project closeout, which I support. It says the applicant will coordinate, and I support the sidewalk license agreement or an easement, whichever is most appropriate. But there's nothing in there that I see that's a deadline or anything binding that it's shall have in place. I know based on the schedule that the applicants communicated to us, they'd like to get going, and it's not very long. It sounds like we can get it done for the end of the year here. So I don't know how long a license agreement or an easement takes to complete. I suspect an easement is going to be longer than a license agreement, but I don't think either party wants to drag it along, but just some sort of way to put a deadline in there. Does that make sense?
I think maybe asking the applicant about what a reasonable timeline may be would be helpful.
Sure. Do you have any idea?
I'm going to defer to our real estate manager.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon, guys. Excuse me, my name is Alan Sadic. I am a representative of real estate department for Avangrid. Thank you guys for having us here today. The process of the PUC approval that is under Chapter 35, 1101, subsection, does require us to provide the detailed plans of the encumbrance of the property. So I think that it will have to be a collaboration with the city once they do have the full design done and approved, that we will actually be able to present that to the PUC for the approval of the easement or license. In my letter, I did submit a letter as a memo expressing the collaboration and work with the city on this particular subject, and also propose that we finalize the MOU, which will outline the responsibilities of each party, which can be done throughout the whole construction process through the completion of the project. But all depends on how fast can city move as far as final designs of that particular area, and if we are able to provide that to the PUC and any of their feedback back to us and the city as it relates to the project. So.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask the real estate individual. So the language that was put up for the very last condition of approval, is that something that's acceptable to CMP? Does that work for CMP?
I think it would definitely work, but I would like to add, if possible, the subject to the PUC approval, MPUC approval, because they're the ones who actually do have to do a final approval of the easement area or encumbrance of any sort.
So could you bring that back up, Emily?
I was thinking the same thing, Jim, is adding the PUC and then seeing if we could reference the MOU as well. And I wouldn't have anything else to add if we could find a way to add those.
So for number 16, the first sentence, Emily, that first sentence would be eliminated under 16, is that right? No, I don't mean that one, I'm talking about the one right above it. So that will be deleted. And then, so where on the revised number 16 would we put in the PUC?
It could be added right after the condition with the CMP real estate, coordination with the CMP real estate approval and subject to the PUC approval. Potentially in that way, if it would work for the board.
Would that language do it for you? If you can read it?
I'm a little blind, so I apologize. That would work, absolutely, if that works for you guys.
Great, thank you very much.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. Any other thoughts from board members? Camille?
Mr. Chair, just a question for the team. Will we be able to see the like a term sheet of the agreement associated with the sidewalk or the easement? Have any of the terms been talked about with CMP and what the responsibilities will be of each party?
I think that's a good question. I don't think we've gotten that far based on what I'm seeing here and what I'm hearing. I think that'll be, I guess, a collaborative effort as to how that gateway project comes together. I think that's, I don't want to say hesitation, but I think maybe part of the hurdle is outlining this easement or license agreement, if appropriate, based on what that final plan ends up coming to fruition. So that's, but I think that's a good question, and we will see once the gateway project is further along, we'll start to see how that easement comes into play, and I'm sure we'll get an update and learn more as that process is completed. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
A little bit. A little bit.
I
Sorry
think
for the hesitation. I just, I had the opportunity to actually drive around to a couple of these locations that CMP has programmed the substations as it relates to the buffering and landscaping programs. And I just have some questions, just so that however the project is delivered, it's fairly, in terms of the responsibilities, they're clearly defined, and we make sure that the project is properly executed from a buffering standpoint, given where this project is located. So I just wanted to just make sure that our team is taking a close look at the terms and making sure that Saco understands just what the responsibilities will be of each party. That's all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
I can just add that we will be working with CMP and Avangrid to make sure those terms are well spelled out. And we have a compliance planner on our team that would be tracking this as well to make sure that it gets done within the specified timelines. So happy to share any final versions of easements or agreements or anything like that with the board.
Thank you. Any other thoughts from board members? I think we've covered the list I had as far as these final comments of conditions of approval as in edits.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we adopt the draft findings of fact for site plan review.
Thank you for the motion, Jim.
I will second.
Second by Jeff, thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt the findings of fact as drafted? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Abstain.
I will vote yes. Motion passes 5-0 with one abstention.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we adopt the conditions of approval for 109 Main Street, this project.
Thank you for the motion, Jim.
Second.
Second by Joyce. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt the conditions of approval as amended? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Abstain.
I vote yes. Motion passes 5-0 with one abstention.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we grant site plan approval to the CMP project at 109 Main Street, map 37, lot 5-1.
Thank you for the motion, Jim.
I'll second.
Second by Joyce, thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion? Those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Abstain.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0 with one abstention. Great, thank you. All right, our next item on the agenda this evening is item 6D. This is Waterfall Drive Residential Development, map 63, lot 6. This is a proposal for 195 residential dwelling units with associated site improvements. This is presented by Park North and Sebago Technics. This is a continued public hearing and application review for preliminary subdivision and site plan. Board members, any conflicts or disclosures on this item before we begin? Emily, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the applicant and city engineer have been working on updates to primarily infrastructure specifications. There were some drainage and stormwater considerations that needed to be updated as well. And there's a lot here because it's a phased, the project will be built in several phases as we've previously discussed. So my recommendation to the applicant is really try to narrow down those items that we brought back for final subdivision review as closely as possible and focus on the items, finishing up and cleaning up the items that will have an impact on the overall design. And then as we get through more details on the next round, which you will see this as a phase 1 final review, so you're only going to see sections of this come back, so only sections, you'll have full control to authorize only certain sections of construction at certain times, so you're not going to be issuing a final review on everything, basically. So that's just some updates from my end, where as soon as those items are addressed with city engineering on the applicant's end, then we will prepare final draft. We'll prepare preliminary review findings and conditions for you. But we thought it important to provide a status update this evening.
Great, thank you, Emily. Any questions by board members for Emily at this time? All right, the applicant's with us this evening to give an update as well.
All right, good evening. My name is Matt Orr, civil engineer with Sebago Technics. Here with Elliot Chamberlain of Park North Development, LLC. So as Emily stated, since we were last in front of you, not too much has changed holistically as we look at the overall project. We've gone through a couple submissions now with city staff and the city engineering department and public works as far as going over utilities and coordinating conflicts, getting the roads aligned to meet city standards, and looking forward to stormwater features and future development and phases of the overall project. As Emily mentioned as well, we're really at this point nailing down the items that would be within phase 1. So what's yellow on the screen, which is the continuation and connection of Waterfall Drive between Cascade Road and Route 1. That primary focus is really what we're looking forward to nail down those items, and as we approach in future submissions for approvals on phases 2 through 5, we'll nail down the minor details that are remaining on those areas. So overall, there's some items left just to touch base with on the city engineer, just to get those things cleaned up and get sign off there, but we're really looking to hopefully continue this and be in front of you all, ideally the 16th, I believe, of September for the draft findings, and receive preliminary vote for preliminary approval at that time.
Great, thank you. Board members, any questions for the applicant? Jeff?
I guess I was a little overwhelmed at the engineer's response with 6 pages of comments. Matt, can you tell me how many, because the city planner just directed we'll be doing this in phases, what percentage of all of those items were relevant to phase 1? Would you guesstimate?
Maybe 4.5 out of the 6. I mean, there's some coordination pieces that are in there. Some were some general questions, just going back to items that we've addressed previously, as this has been going on for a little bit, and it's exchanged hands with staff as far as city engineer review. So some of those items are, they may not pertain to phase 1, but we can address at this point as well.
So I guess I'm looking for a little more clarity. I was reading some of them, and some of them might just be, underground elevation conflicts with different utilities passing by, which obviously is just something you guys are always working, those details are kind of in flux, right? But some of them I thought were pretty big, particularly with, the city not being interested in taking over some of these retention ponds because of the inability to access and maintain long-term. What's the strategy moving forward? Are you planning on then trying to hold those as an association that's going to maintain that? Or are you going to be making some really significant changes to allow the dimensional standards that the Public Works Department's looking for to be able to effectively maintain those structures long-term and then take them over as a city maintenance item?
Yeah, I mean, we'll certainly review and discuss with that again with city staff, public works, and city engineer as far as taking those ponds, specifically the ponds, over. I know as it was in the previous phases of the development in the subdivision, typically those weren't, especially in like the center areas when we still have a lot of development to go around those ponds. The city doesn't usually take those over until the rest of the infrastructure is in place. So I think there's a little bit of time to still figure out some of those legality components, and for now, they would maintain within the association.
Well, I guess my bigger question, though, is I got the impression, maybe I misread it, I got the impression is that they didn't feel like there was enough space around them to properly maintain them with equipment, which in my mind would mean if you wanted to offer that up, you're going to have to create more space. Does that mean, how much of an impact is that going to make on the proposed layout to create the space that they're looking for to be acceptable to their standards before they would be willing to take on that long-term responsibility of maintaining them?
As it stands at this point, we're not going to be shifting units and layout, so I think it's just, again, having the discussion with the city staff to better understand what they're meaning and intending by that comment.
I think that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Any other thoughts from board members? Jim?
So just so I understand, so you'll be coming back to us with like preliminary on phase 1, and you're hoping to do that for our next meeting or the second meeting in September?
The second meeting in September, yes, and it's preliminary for everything that's in front of you, so all phases as far as layout and everything.
Okay, all right, all right. I misunderstood. Okay. And so to Jeff's point, I mean, is that going to be sufficient time for you to work through those 6 pages of concerns?
Yes.
Public Works says?
Yep.
That's great. Now, I know this project's been on the boards for a long time, and and each time it keeps looking better and better. So I look forward to that meeting. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jim. I had that same clarifying question, was to understand that preliminary over the whole project as a phased approach, and then the finals would come as each individual phase. So that was correct. Okay. Any other thoughts from board members?
So, Mr. Chair, this is supposed to be a continued public hearing, and if it's appropriate, I'll move to reopen the public hearing.
I will second that motion.
Thank you for the motion, Jim, and the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion on opening the public hearing, reopening the public hearing, excuse me? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. If anyone is with us this evening to speak on this item, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and we will collect comments and address them accordingly.
Mr. Chair, seeing no one from the public wishing to speak, I'll move that we continue the public hearing until, I'm guessing, the second meeting in September?
September 16th.
September 16th.
I will second.
Thank you for the motion, Jim, and the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion on continuing the public hearing until September 16th? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. All right, back to the board. Any additional questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? Jeff?
I guess I would just hope, I mean, I understand that we're trying to give a preliminary approval to the conceptual plan that will be phased. I'm looking forward to the time when the list from the city engineer is smaller, and I kind of view if they don't like the access and security around these wet ponds as being a pretty big design issue, and hopefully we can get through that before the 16th, so we really kind of know what we're going to have. You know, it's hard for me, I'm not in that field, but how much more space are they really talking? Are they talking additional 20 feet around the perimeter of each one of these? That's quite a bit of land, and with that shift, and I'm getting the applicants saying they're not intending on shifting any lot lines right now, so how is this going to work is a fairly big concern of mine, so thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other thoughts from board members? Elliot?
Can I address that one comment?
Sure.
We're really down to, is the city going to take on the responsibility of the ponds, or is the association going to do it? That's really the question. We got kind of caught between Joe leaving and, excuse me, Adam, sorry, I apologize. Adam taking over, and obviously the city has had a lot of things going on. So a lot of those comments were really older comments. We don't see any problem getting through that list and having it addressed by Public Works and being on the agenda for the 16th. We don't see any issue with that. We do understand that one question is probably the biggest item out of that entire list. But it may be a case where it's not a pond that's taken over by the city. And for example, in the project we're doing in Scarborough, none of those ponds are taken over by the town. They have easement rights in case they ever had to, but all the ponds are taken taken care of by the association.
I mean, I think if we get some summary, some closure to that, is exactly what we're looking for, so the 16th could be very productive. Thank you.
Any other thoughts from board members? Okay. Yeah, no, I thought that was the bigger item as well, but I suspected that given the time frame and the discussion that it was solvable as well. So that's, I'm glad to hear that you guys have thoughts in there for that. So, yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we continue review of this application on September 16th.
I'll second.
Thank you for the motion, Jim, and the second, Joyce. Any additional discussion to continue to September 16th? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chair, can we take a short break before our next agenda item, please? I think we're about halfway.
Sure. Do like a 5 or 7 minute recess. Sure. We will continue this evening with our next item. This is item 6E, and this is 138 Main Street, map 37, lot 8. And this is a continued public hearing and application review for a site plan amendment for installation of 2 pantographic en route chargers for Bedford Saco OOB Transit battery electric buses. Board members, any conflicts or disclosures on this item before we begin? Emily, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did receive an email with a decommissioning plan. We appreciate that from BSOOB. That's in the after the fact meeting packet. Recommend that you take a look at that. We also appreciate that there was a requested draft lease amendment that was sent to city administration, and that will be going to the city council level for review. So we don't have that piece finalized, but it will be sent to the city council, and we appreciate the updates, especially with a short turnaround. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Emily. Board members, any questions for Emily at this time? Emily, one quick item. The confirmation on that distance from the city street to the equipment, that 20 feet, did we get resolution on that or any additional input or direction?
Yeah, I do not have an email written from Director Moore. However, I was able to speak with him about it, and it was 20 feet clear for structures and 10 feet clear for landscaping.
Okay. 20 feet structures, 10 feet landscape. So the applicant's just getting that now as well, or got that this afternoon?
No.
Just now today, okay.
Just
All right.
now.
It was a short week, wasn't it? For everybody, I think. Okay. Any additional questions for staff at this time, board members? Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question on the decommissioning plan. I know it's obviously in a last minute after the fact packet because of the short time. Do we know the site is under that VRAP permit because of the existing or previous contaminations? And they're being very diligent with the new construction and meeting that standard, and it sounds like there's some sort of like a capping membrane. Would that need to be like reopened for this decommissioning plan, where they're removing the concrete below grade and for appropriate mitigation?
That's something you might want to check with the applicant on. We can certainly take the question back. I don't know the answer to that directly.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions? All right, we have the applicant with us this evening. Thank you. Anything to add? Maybe touch base on that question if you would know the answer, but.
Yeah, I can provide a few updates. The decommissioning is actually just going to go between 8 and 12 inches below surface level, which is the depth in order to sustain the growth of grass, recognizing that, if we go any shallower than that, then grass won't grow and it'll just burn. And we don't want the remnant to keep showing forever. Part of the reason for doing that is because the foundations have to go so deep, and there's a desire to not re-expose all the VRAP conditions and to have to recap again. So that's what's in that decommissioning plan, and there's a commitment to continue to follow the VRAP conditions in that decommissioning plan as well. I can give a quick update on what we've done since we met last. Obviously, as Emily mentioned, we drafted an amendment to the lease, and we went to the site and reviewed the plan. And actually what I'm showing here is not a engineered stamp drawing, but this is the drawing that we have the engineer working on. We just couldn't get that turned around in time. We also measured at the site, and I can show a couple of images of that. So we measured 20 feet from the roadway, and that's that first line with 2 stakes. And then our new layout requires 19 feet from the edge of the parking lot. So we actually have a couple of extra feet. It's 3 feet of additional room. So our structures would end 19 feet from the parking lot, which is 23 feet from the roadway. The conditions that were mentioned just now were well within. So we're more than 20 feet from the roadway, and our landscaping was going to be another 3 to 5 feet, depending on how the trees staggered. And so we'll be, significantly more than 10 feet away from the road with our landscaping as well.
Okay, great. That's fantastic to hear. That gives us some of that buffer we were talking about, sort of. I think our last set of comments from our landscape peer reviewer, I think, had 2 different species of trees in there and sort of staggered, so that's good.
Yep.
Have
So
a few extra feet, and we've got that clarity that we could be up to 10 from the landscaping. So that's good. So that's the plan that you're working on there to get updated. So
yeah, and this is again just a rough plan so that we could get engineered drawings done and stamped. So our hope tonight is to get conditional approval so that we can get moving forward with the permitting process, because we, as everyone else, would like to get construction going before the end of this season. So,
any other questions besides mine? Not really questions, but comments. But any other thoughts from board members for the applicant this evening, or in any of these updates? Jeff?
My only question is, and they'll probably correct it on the stamp drawings, that transformer pad would be in like the wrong rotation for the required 10-foot clearance when the gates open to service the pad mount for CMP's requirements in their book of procedures. So I'm assuming number 4 is kind of showing where your gate is.
Yep.
Towards the parking lot.
Yep.
Because they're going to require that space, and then that would then make the back dimensions accurate if you stayed 3 feet off of the pad.
right. So the 10 feet is clear space. So once the gate is open, then that gives them their 10 feet to work in. So it's a 3-foot requirement behind the pad, 5 feet on each side, and then 10 feet in front of the equipment. So we have that 10 feet once the gate is opened. So if they were to work on the equipment, they would work with the gate open.
Any other thoughts or questions from board members?
I just wanted to make a comment. It looks like the decommissioning plan had a lot of the items that was very strongly that we should include as conditions of approval. I think they did a really good job capping or capitalizing on the clarity about removing all concrete structures above grade and returning the site to its original condition. So I think that this decommissioning plan is a pretty solid plan. It's a good addition to their application. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Any additional thoughts, questions? So, Emily, can you talk briefly again or more about the draft lease amendment, that verbiage? How does that, can you, I guess, speak to the board as how that comes into play? So we know there's city property, we know there's a lease, we're amending the lease. So I guess how I see it, it's, I think inadvertently a little bit of a gray area, unfortunately. There's the applicant has right title and interest to it, but now we're making a lease agreement. So how does that come into play, or how does staff and council see those kind of cogs of the gear. Can you,
Yeah, so as far as the amendment to the lease, that hasn't been approved yet. So there is a clause in the actual lease that we have now that talks about putting out EV charging infrastructure, but it doesn't reference a specific location for that infrastructure, as far as I know. So the lease amendment would be not only to specify, reference out this review, but also to indicate inclusion of the decommissioning plan because it's on City of Saco property. Right now, I would anticipate that amended lease going to City Council just to clarify this right title and interest question. And that would probably be happening in September. I don't know if Councilor Hatch wants to weigh in any more on that.
and this would be to council at the first September meeting, the second meeting, do we?
Yeah, I would anticipate that it would be pretty quick, but it would be up to the mayor to schedule when that would be on the council agenda list.
Sure, so it's, not to belabor it, but the lease as it sits now isn't specific about the EV charging component to it.
It has a somewhat vague reference that there will be EV chargers on the site, but it doesn't specify where on the site, and it doesn't specify how they are to be decommissioned once they're put up.
Okay. And I'm trying to anticipate or understand and I guess avoid a chicken and an egg kind of thing. So the board's reviewed the project. If the board finds that the application meets the requirements of a site plan amendment from the planning perspective, would the board provide such recommendation based on its review that the board finds this location appropriate or not appropriate, or are we looking for council, or does council need to weigh in and then sort of say, tell the board that yes, it's okay, or how does that piece to the puzzle work?
So I don't think that there's necessarily a defined piece of this, of procedurally how it's supposed to go, but normally, if something's going on City of Saco land, we have either a license agreement or an easement or something in place with the landowner or lease to clarify exactly what's going on the site, how it's supposed to be going, and how it's supposed to be removed. So when we talk about things going on city land, we have pretty specific parameters to make sure that everything's well spelled out before we issue approvals.
Okay.
So that's just how I've seen it go in the past, and maybe we're a little more strict on city-owned property just because we want to make sure it's clarified as to what's going where.
Okay. Board members, any questions, comments? So Jeff, you've had a chance to review this somewhat quickly. I know you had a few questions and noted that this had seemed to have captured most, if not all of them, but any other thoughts on the decommissioning here?
So my thoughts on the decommissioning were more from a planning board aesthetic point of view, that it was going to be restored to the existing site conditions without having, I didn't want to have a Stonehenge of all the failed technologies over at our transportation center, right? And hopefully this one doesn't fail, by the way, but I didn't want to have all these concrete structures. So this was pretty clear about getting stuff below grade, suitable for continued vegetation or sod on top of it. Given the city planner's discussion, I think that it might need some review from city staff to make sure that the VRAP is covered, to make sure that some of the other steps might be spelled out even or as fine in great detail as they would want for a lease agreement. So I think, my concern about restoring the site is important and captured in this. It may need further review from city staff, is my only thought from a technical point of view. I'm not sure how deep that VRAP cover is and what they might disturb. I mean, the foundation for that transformer is a 4-foot deep pad, whether they're hammering the top of it and then filling it in as a box, or are they pulling it out? Some of this talks about cable pullers and removing equipment. Those ducts are still in place. The city engineer may want to say how those ducts are filled with a flowable fill, so there's no settling and erosion in the future. I mean, there's a lot of details that I think should be vetted from city staff. My concern from restoring the site, I think, is clearly addressed in this, but like I said, I think we should let staff review it before the council enters into any sort of additional lease modification.
Great, thank you. If I could maybe put Councilor Hatch on the hot seat for a moment here, but so Councilor Hatch, where you've had the opportunity to sit with the board, I suspect council's aware of the project and familiar with it, and isn't going to be surprised by the amendment to the lease agreement to come before them. Is there?
I think that's a fair, excuse me, a fair assessment.
Okay, so not speaking for anybody, but the board, the council is prepared to review and comment and look at this on a, I don't know if they see this as a large hurdle or something that is going to be difficult to overcome or anything like that, but.
Well, I can't speak for the entire council, but
of course,
I can
yes.
give you my singular view on this. We have a lease in place, so they have right, title, and interest. There is provisions within that lease to move forward and do what's being proposed here, and this amendment is going to specifically identify what will be done, and I see this from a legal standpoint a very easy step to take, and I think for many of us, including myself, the decommissioning component was a key. So that's been vetted. It's there. We're going to be able to see it. Saco's rich in history, but one of the historical moments we've had, we can all recall a windmill at the top of the hill that didn't work. And so the last thing we wanted to do was to be caught in that same situation. So I think this decommissioning plan is fair. It's well thought out, and certainly enforceable if and when the need arises. So, we're going to go through the process. We'll have the debate at the council level. From my perspective, my personal perspective, I do think that this is a very fair and reasonable approach. And if you felt the need to condition your approvals on the approval of that amendment, I think that might be a reasonable way to approach that. So, those are my opinions.
Thank you, sir. That's overall what I'm looking to get is in sort of feedback. So we have the decommissioning plan, we have a draft lease agreement. Emily, has staff had a chance, I guess, meaning our city engineer review the decommissioning plan as well? Has that been able to come together in a time frame or no?
No, I have not gotten
Okay.
a review on it yet.
So the city engineer could review this, provide necessary comments to council, to board as appropriate and necessary, council reviews, and makes a determination from there. So where I'm getting with this is the board, our board, reviewing this, and is it appropriate to draft a condition of approval? Does that work? Does it not? I'm trying to understand where this is a lease agreement with city property that council hasn't taken up this topic yet.
Mr. Chair,
that's the piece I'm working through.
If I can
Jim?
interrupt, the draft conditions of approval, I think, number 6, has a number of bullet points there, and One of them is the applicant shall submit a decommissioning plan for the electric bus charges, associated infrastructure to be reviewed and approved by city staff, including but not limited to lease amendment questions. So I think that we have that condition already proposed. So even if there are modifications to the decommissioning plan, because that's something the city staff wants, as Jeff pointed out, or if there are tweaks with this proposed lease amendment, I mean, I think that condition of approval has a city staff having the final say on whether or not it's satisfactory. So I think we're all set there.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Camille may have a different thought, though.
No, I think that's spot on, Jim. I was just, thinking about like how to connect the decommissioning plan to the lease agreement. And one way we could potentially suggest is adding it as an exhibit to the lease. So right now, there is a master lease, or not just like a standard lease, and then this will be an amendment to the lease. And in that amendment to the lease, we'll be defining what's going to happen with this project, right? And so I guess, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense in terms of connecting the two, but a consideration for the team.
Thoughts on that, Jim?
Yeah, I think that can work. I mean, that decommissioning plan is part of the lease amendment. Although, frankly, I think that would be more of the council's decision whether or not to add that as an exhibit. Although it makes great sense to do that, so there's no confusion. But I don't think that's something that we have to do.
That was my first thought. I really like that idea. My first thought was wondering if the board can, dictate what can be in the lease, but maybe recommend that the decommissioning plan, become part of the lease document. At least the great thing is we have our council liaison here, and he hopefully can speak for us when we're not there, but he understands the concerns and what we're looking to do as a board. So I think that's a good point, Jim, to that condition. I'm thinking that if the board wants to move in that direction, making sure that it's clear and not just sort of understood that if there's any amendments or direction dictated by the lease that would require changes to the site plan application, then it would have to come back. It would have to come back to us. That's and I don't, Emily, do we have any verbiage like that in there?
We have the standard approval of this amendment is conditioned upon compliance by the applicant. It's number 3, and then number 2 also covers it.
Okay.
I would just like to make sure that I have clarity from the staff side as far as what landscaping is being planted, because I just don't think there was enough time to write that all down on a plan. So I just want to make sure it's really clear in this meeting as to what the final word is for staff, because it is a pretty visible spot on our main street, and I want to make sure I'm complying with what the board would like to see.
Sure. So I think at our last meeting, I think the board was receptive to the comments provided by the peer reviewer, landscape architect. I don't think we had additional discussion beyond that. We saw those comments, and I think the board supported those comments, but I'm not speaking for the board here. Any thoughts from board members on the revised landscaping or the recommended landscape plan from the peer reviewer?
I think overall, the general consensus was that those were positive suggestions, and the applicant was amenable to planning whatever the peer reviewer suggested. It seemed like the only concern was how close is this to the road, and that question's been answered.
Sure.
If I could, there was a question last time for the peer reviewer about where the plantings that the peer reviewer showed were only on one side of the structure, only on the side closest to the road. And I had asked for clarification about what plantings the peer reviewer was recommending on the sides of the structures, and I didn't get a response yet on that, Emily. And I didn't get a copy of the peer-reviewed plan either.
So do you want me to address that?
Yes, please.
So the peer review plan was in the meeting packet from the last meeting. So the link that Lisa sends out, we update, and so we can certainly send you a link, but it is in there. As far as at the last meeting, I believe it was referenced that the plantings that were originally shown on there were to be retained from your original plans. So I'm not sure if we've discussed that any further. So I did not send this back to the peer reviewer because she does have some initial plantings here from the original. So what she was recommending, my understanding, was plantings in addition to what was previously shown.
There was a species called out specifically for the plantings, the taller arborvitae plantings along the front, but it wasn't clear whether she intended for that same species of arborvitae to be along the sides, and I just wanted to make sure that was what she was looking for.
Oh, okay, understood. I don't have an answer to that this evening.
Yeah, but we are amenable to the recommendations from the peer reviewer. The intent was to have the new plans drawn up with those specific plants called out. So.
Okay, great. Emily, is there, where did you say we could find that, the more items? I wanted to pull up that peer reviewers.
Yep, so if you go to the August 12th meeting packet and the very bottom, it's the last link on the very bottom.
I see my problem. I picked the wrong meeting date.
It looks like John is pulling it up.
There it is. So as part of the applicant's package, they have tailored junipers, and the peer reviewer is also recommending a juniper. I think it seems to be a different juniper, and then some little quick fire hydrangeas and another sort of center feature tree. So that appears to be all outside of the fence line, similar to how the applicant had originally proposed their planting plan. So I think that's, does that answer your question?
It does, yes.
Okay. So we'll make sure that the applicant has that. They'll update their planting plans. So I guess that's the direction for staff.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, I think when they do their engineered layout, they should check with their proposed contractor to make sure that the placement of that transformer meets CMP requirements for their plan. The primary has to come in under the front door in their handbook. which means you'll end up like this sweep under the sidewalk, or if you spin that, and if you spin that, you just stated your side clearance goes to 5 feet, so that 3-foot buffer will now basically be utilized to capacity, and make sure that the peer review feels like there's a sufficient space there for the health of those trees to form the buffer. And it would also change the side profile because they wouldn't be able to put trees there because that's where the gate would be if it had to change. So that would greatly change the visual impact coming up Main Street. When you look to the left, there would be a gate with no vegetation permitted in front of it. So that's all details that they'll work out on their final plan, and then our peer review for landscape to make sure there's sufficient space for the health of that buffer.
Thank you, Jeff.
So you're talking, Jeff, about that, the bottom number 4 gate being relocated?
Well, this is getting technical, but so if you looked at that number 4 gate, if they turn that transformer, that has to be the front side so they can open the gate and utility crews can work safely. That would give them their 10-foot clearance, and it's also nice because it makes the view only visible from the parking lot. Our concerns about buffering from Main Street are pretty much met. But if they don't have enough real estate to bring their raceway underground into the front of the pad where the 4 is, they would have to then rotate that so that that front is on the 28, 29-foot dimension side, which would mean the gate would have to be there, or they have to have enough room to create 10 feet inside the fence for safe work zone. So that could shift the ability for a substantial buffer. It's just a matter of meeting the CMP requirements for that type of transformer, and then our buffering, as well as what our Director of Public Works is requesting for clear space. And my big thing is to make sure, as Emily pointed out, it's important that the health of this buffer stays intact and we don't plant it and have it destroyed with snow load in the wintertime or salt from the street, that sort of stuff. So thank you.
Sure, thank you. Well, I think this is what we have today. I'm sure the applicant wants to keep that direction, and I'm sure he enjoys coming here, but I think this is the better. I'm sure he'll make this work. Any other thoughts from board members? So just as a reminder, we closed the public hearing at our last meeting. So we don't have a public hearing review this evening with us. So just back to board deliberation, if there's any additional direction we need to provide the applicant, or any other final thoughts or concerns. So we have 2 courses of action. We can make a motion based on the findings of fact, conditions of approval we have this evening, or if the board finds input from council and continue review, that's not sure what the board, those are really the 2 actions I think we have before us.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we adopt strike that. We have at least 3 findings of fact I think we need to modify. If you look at number 11A, I believe I'm not sure if we need to do anything with E or with G. But with respect to A, I reviewed the good neighbor standards and performance standards in our zoning ordinance, and it looks to me like that standard is met, so I would suggest we eliminate the sentence that's there and simply state that based upon the application, the testimony from the applicant and peer reviewers, this standard is met. So I would suggest we do that with A.
I had to shut my computer down and restart it, so can you give me a quick minute?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, no worries.
So for 11A, Emily, I was suggesting we delete that sentence and insert based upon the application, the testimony of the applicant, and recommendations of peer reviewers, this standard is met. And after reviewing E and G, I think those are fine as they are. They note Jeff's concerns, which I think are important to include. But otherwise, with that change, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we adopt the findings of fact.
I'll second.
Thank you for the motion, Jim, and the second, Joyce. Any additional discussion on the motion? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
No.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Abstain.
I vote yes. Motion passes 4-1 and 1 abstention.
Yeah, Jim made the motion, not Jeff.
I'm sorry, did I say Jeff?
No, I'm
Oh.
reading the screen.
With respect to the conditions of approval, on this issue of landscaping, I don't see anything specific in the conditions of approval about landscaping, but given the fact the applicant is willing to comply with whatever the recommendations of our landscape peer reviewer are, I would suggest we include condition number 23. Which will say all landscaping will be pursuant to the requirements of the city's landscape peer reviewer. And with that, I move that we adopt the conditions of approval.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Jim, and the second, Joyce. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt the conditions of approval as amended? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
No.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Abstain.
A vote yes. Motion passes 4-1 with 1 abstention.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we grant site plan amendment approval for 138 Main Street, map 37, lot 8, to the Bedford Saco Woolwich Beach Transit.
I'll second.
Thank you for the motion, Jim, and the second, Joyce. Any additional discussion? Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, if I may. I just wanted to touch base. I mean, I think you guys know where my view on this one is. And just to be very clear that, I take, my role as the appointment of reviewing this board very seriously, and I leave my professional hat outside before I come in and try to be working for the town on this. And sometimes it's hard because that technical piece comes in to play. And there's probably nobody on this board that, admires, infrastructure, heavy infrastructure like this than I do. I just truly think that it's the wrong place on that site for it. So there's obviously the aesthetic view. I don't think we're meeting the aesthetic requirements for that. And I also have grave concerns with regards to the safety. It's a relatively newer technology. We're always pushing the limits of these chargers and compatibility with batteries. We know that there can be a fire danger, and that's my big concern, right, is that we have a public safety element in this. Now, there's an opportunity for great public benefit for cleaner sources. I just think it's a little premature as to where it's being placed. I understand the passion and the location. If I was a business owner, it makes perfect sense. All your buses are going through there anyways, right? I just have concerns about how much work has been going into revitalizing the historic district, getting the train station there, the mill complex, our future long-range goals for infill development, and the transportation sector would play a role in that. And I just really hope that I am totally wrong, that there is never an incident that happens there. And it's just an impact of, what I view as a loss of the aesthetic value and fitting into that neighborhood with this equipment and buffering. So just wanted that to be very clear, that I just think it's the wrong location. If we want to really go in this electrification method, I think we ought to be looking at other locations such as, industrial parks. And I granted it's a little bit more inconvenient for their scheduling, but I think it would be better for our community safe-wise overall. And then there's the loading too, right? We want to infill our downtown. There's non-cyclical loads like this. These are huge loads that come on and off for very short periods of time, which create the power regulation issues for everyone who's on board at the same time. So I just wanted to be clear as to the reason of my opposition. I think it's great that they're passionate and we're looking for growth in this regard. I just really think this is the wrong location for fire suppression, public safety, and views. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add, Jeff, I have the highest respect for your professionalism and your opinions, and I think, and I hope you're right that there is no catastrophe here that happens, because if it did, I'm always going to remember what you said tonight. But I think the risks are small, and just odds are the risk is small, and I think that this is the right location, although I appreciate everything you said about public safety, and I acknowledge that's a risk, but I do think that this really is the best location for this, these chargers, and I think it will just maximize, hopefully, public use of the bus system rather than everyone just driving cars throughout our 3 communities. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any other thoughts from board members? Camille?
Yes, thank you. So I appreciate what, Jeff, you have to say about preserving kind of the downtown and the aesthetic, and I'm a huge proponent of that. One thing I wanted to know, so for this lease, going back to the lease, what is the lease term of it? Because I believe it's like, what, 4 years left?
I'm
essentially?
not 100. Do you want me to address?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, please.
I'm not sure if it was 3 or 5 year lease. Perhaps either the applicant or our counselor could speak to that.
Okay, you're on 6, so 3 more years, right, essentially? And you have 1 renewal, I believe. 3 more years. And then you have, I believe, a 1 year renewal after that, if you were to exercise it, possibly.
Sorry, can you come right up to the podium for the record?
So it is a 5-year lease.
Yeah.
There are 3 years remaining.
Yeah.
I do not remember if there are extensions listed on the lease agreement, but the intention is to continue to occupy that space.
Okay.
You know, it's a key infrastructure for the train, not just the train, but also the communities. So the intention is to continue being there.
Well, I'm just thinking about to just ease Jeff's concerns, and if this project were not to work out within the next 3 years, the lease expires, and it's at the city's discretion, I assume, to renew or continue to have the operator there. So, I don't know, 3 years to see how it works out. And then if it doesn't, then proceed with the decommissioning plan, which I think is getting there in terms of certain regulations, et cetera. So anyway, just making a comment, just trying to keep everyone happy.
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts from board members? Discussion? All right, motion by Jim, seconded by Joyce to grant site plan amendment as discussed. All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
No.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Abstain.
A vote yes. Motion passes 4-1 with 1 abstention. Thank you. Emily, did we capture everything?
I believe so.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, our next item on the agenda this evening is item 6F. This is 74 Industrial Park Road, map 71, lot 8. And this is a continued public hearing and application review for a conditional use amendment. And this is a request to co-locate adult use cannabis manufacturing presented by Cosmic Solutions LLC. And this is within the industrial zoning district. Board members, any disclosures or conflicts on this item? Emily, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to point you to the after-the-fact packet where the applicant did provide a site plan that was requested. So appreciate that. Know it was a short timeline, so that is why it is in the after-the-fact materials. I would note, I believe everything out there is existing, so I see that there might be a small pavement encroachment area, but again, it's existing and there's no changes with this application relative to that specific area on the plan. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Emily. Board members, any questions for Emily at this time? All right, we have the applicant with us. If you would like to add anything to Emily's memo?
We have the parts ordered for the simple sprinkler fix. The fire chief knows all about it. The parking lots are being striped on Thursday. We updated the map, the site plan. And I think that's it. I mean, the only thing I'll add is I really would love to move this forward. I'm 27 months into this project, hundreds of thousands of dollars in missed revenue. It's been a long process, and
we're not doing anything different than we're currently doing right now. So I just really would love to wrap this up. It would be wonderful. I think we have everything at this point, should be done.
I believe so. Okay, great. Board members, any questions for the applicant? So this is a reminder, we have continued public hearing on this item when the board's ready. Or any questions for the applicant again?
Mr. Chair, I move to reopen the continued public hearing.
I will second.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion on reopening the public hearing? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to reopen the public hearing. If anyone is with us this evening that would like to speak on this item, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. We will collect comments and address them at the conclusion.
Mr. Chair, seeing no one coming forward, I move to close the public hearing.
I will second.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion? All right, those in favor, close the public hearing. Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to close the public hearing. Back to board discussion. Any final thoughts or concerns?
As far as I can tell, Mr. Chair, the only issues we had outstanding from the last time were making sure that parking lot striping was done and the sprinkler system operating properly. So it looks to me like everything's been taken care of, considering the fact that the proposed conditions of approval require that the applicant shall stripe the parking lot by June 30th, 2026, and fulfill all outstanding comments from the fire department.
Thank you, Joyce. Any additional thoughts from board members?
With that, Mr. Chair, I'd move to adopt the draft findings of fact as presented.
I would second that.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt the findings of fact as drafted? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Abstain.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0 with one abstention.
And Mr. Chair, I move to adopt the draft conditions of approval as presented.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce.
Second.
Second by Jim. Thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt the conditions of approval as drafted? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Abstain.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0 with one abstention.
So, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the amendment to the previous approval for the conditional use of registered dispensary with co-located adult use manufacturing for 74 Industrial Park Road, map 71, lot 8.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Jim. Any additional discussion on the motion? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Abstain.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0 with one abstention.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you,
That's
sir.
right. That's good news. Thank you, guys. That's it, right?
That's it.
Done?
All right, our next item on the agenda this evening is item 6G. This is 61 Cascade Road, map 48, lot 5, and map 48, lot 7. And this is a continued public hearing and application review for a 3-lot subdivision. And this has been requested to table to the September 2nd meeting. Any update on that, Emily? Is that still correct?
That is correct, yes.
So, Mr. Chair, with that, I move to continue the review of this proposal, including the public hearing, to September 2nd, 2025.
Great, thank you for the motion, Jeff.
Second.
Second by Joyce, thank you. Any discussion on the motion to continue this item to September 2nd? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. And with that, our next item on the agenda this evening is item 6H, Technical Design and Construction Standard Manual Update. Public hearing and request for recommendation from the Planning Board to City Council. Anything to add on that item, Emily?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So if you look at the last page in the after-the-fact packet, email from Joe Laverrier, I did ask Joe to give me some updates. Joe is working a limited schedule right now, and between that and just having 1 week to get back to us, these aren't necessarily written in the TDCSM. However, we did go per each recommendation that Jeff Brochu had provided. So the first one was 6.1.1. You can see I sent Joe the recording so he could listen to Jeff's comments as well. The suggestion I have there is this section going from what it states today to this section outlines the requirements for furnishing, installation, startup, and testing of private grinder pump stations. So Joe thought that was good and was going to make that change. And yes, I agree that it did sound a little bit like a bid document or something, to Jeff's point. So thank you for that. For 6.8.2, Jeff had noted a typo in the section relative to pump stations or pump station keys. And Joe agreed to that, and he's reviewing with Howard to update the confusion about pins and keys. For municipal street lighting, again, I summarized it here, but also provided Joe the link to the recording so he could hear the comments directly. Routine maintenance for street lights can be accomplished without coordination with CMP. However, more extensive repairs requires coordination with CMP for a disconnect and reconnect process, to Jeff's point. There is a coordination effort that may result in some delays, but there are cost savings to the city to eliminate monthly meter set charges for the offset. So my understanding is that those meter charges are not small when they are at scale. So that was his response to that. And then 7-1, detail and light pole base figure, includes spelled out bolt figure. He is certainly agreeable to adding the detail. I think that's supposed to say if necessary. I hope that addresses the comments, and if the board is comfortable moving this forward, I'm wondering if it's possible to ask for a recommendation that these comments be addressed by staff before the final version gets sent to public hearing with the TDCSM that's going to the City Council's public hearing on August 25th.
Great, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Emily. Board members, any questions for Emily? Jeff?
So if I may, thank you, Mr. Chair. In conjunction with some of the discussion that we had earlier or I had with Marcel, there were a couple topics that were brought up, and I would be all on board having staff review. Because you probably want to check me, but Marcel said it was okay to move forward and bring this, is that he would be very much in support of keeping the existing secondary metering. Because if you read the terms and conditions of your section 53, when your city asset light is on a pole that's fed directly from a transformer, you now need to have an approved CMP contractor doing that work, not just necessarily your city electrician, which my understanding is currently we don't have that approved contractor in-house. So you'd be going to your third-party vendor, which has additional costs, and when you start meeting them on site with line crews, the delays get pretty long. As far as your basic metering amount, typically that's true. There's a base amount for each meter, but I believe if you check with your key account manager, they will compile that with your municipal account, and then it wouldn't be an exuberant fee. And the benefits that you would have to the taxpayers on the expeditious repair, and then being able to have our city staff electricians go out and make this work, I really, as a taxpayer, would recommend that we revisit this a little more closely and just make sure that all city staff, maybe get Marcel involved and have that discussion, and Mr. Profano, because it also expedites, there's a bit of confusion on the underground conductor at that point, and ownership and repair and the ability to find faults when you bring in a specialized contractor to tell you where the break is. You need to have the line crews there, and they can bill you as well. So those savings, as a taxpayer, I think you really ought to look at. And I'm not saying this in, my best interest. It's really the city, because you don't have to be a specialized contractor to do that work anymore. And I think it would pay dividends to continue to do that. And I think it's unfortunate. There might be a little bit more cost to the developer when they build that, because they're building that infrastructure to city standards. But the ability to repair and then upgrade, when you guys want to do continued upgrades to new style lights, which will inevitably happen, LEDs are not forever, it will make that transition much easier for the city. So kind of hoping that we can maybe revisit that Section 7 for the underground subdivisions and possibly consider going back to secondary metering. I think it would be in the best interest of the city. Additionally, when Marcel and I were talking, I really like the technical design manual. I think it's great. It's a great reference. Anybody who's in construction can typically appreciate things being spelled out. One thing that might make everyone's life easier, too, is if we were to incorporate a section in there that says, hey, in the city of Saco, we follow NFPA 70 for the National Electrical Code, but also just reference CMP's Handbook of Requirements for Electrical Services and Meter Installations. It's a phenomenal book that, as you heard tonight, has a lot of details that every applicant has to build to. And by mirroring that, there's nothing in any of our Chapter 87 for electrical standards that references that. And it would really make their job in the code enforcement much easier, because they're all illustrated. It's very clearly spelled out. I think it would be a relatively short one line that, hey, in the city of Saco, we follow the latest adopted code of NFPA 70, as well as the Central Main Power Handbook as amended from time to time. They do it like once every 7 to 10 years, but it's super clear on how multiple services cross in the field. There's just a lot of great information, and it would be, it just expands that technical design manual without any labor on the city's part, and they're our only electric provider in this town, so it makes it kind of harmonious. So I would hope that maybe we could consider adding that in. I think it would make everyone's job in the code enforcement much easier. I think that is the only comment I had. So maybe kick it back to staff, or
So I'm happy to follow up on everything here. I really am hoping that we can move this forward. There are reserved sections as well, and I fully intend to bring amendments forward. Section 7, I will get sounds like there's some different opinions from the different city staff, and I missed Marcel's phone call today to debrief me on your meeting with him. So I'm happy to follow up with Marcel and try to put together a meeting with engineering and code enforcement and planning and everyone else who has to be there so we can confirm the lighting specs going forward and bring up this comment. I'm also happy to share all these comments with the city council. So just wondering if it is possible to move this forward to keep it on a good schedule before. Usually I don't like to push things forward, but I am trying to get this done before our current city engineer is no longer here on which will be a little bit after that actually when this is done, but you know, we'll be close to having this right at the tail end of his leaving here, so. But I appreciate all these comments. They're very good. We will definitely make sure that the Section 7 metering comments are fully addressed.
With that, Mr. Chair, I would move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff. In the second, Jim. Any discussion on the motion to open the public hearing on this item? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. If anyone is with us this evening that would like to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. We will collect comments and address them at the conclusion.
Mr. Chair, seeing no one wishing to speak on this topic, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and the second for the motion, Jeff, and the second, Joyce. Any additional discussion on the motion? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. So with that discussion, Emily, I think you, as you mentioned, you gathered some of the thoughts there on item 7. It would be good to make sure all staff is on the same page or at least provided input.
Just to be clear, all staff have been
Sure.
given the opportunity for input on the TDCSM.
Yeah, yeah. With all the comments, yes. Yep, understood. How about the comment on the CMP handbook, adding that into that? Seems like a good idea to me and fairly straightforward. I'm not sure how you incorporate that in there, but if it goes into another section, if it's part of our recommendation.
So I would plan to follow up on the secondary metering as the primary item here, and then NFPA 70 and CMP handbook reference in the same meeting if we have time to address that as well. If not, then it will definitely go into the next round of amendments.
Okay. Any other thoughts from board members?
Mr. Chair, with that, understanding that the staff is going to work with Jeff's comments, which I think were very well taken, and I hope the City Council agrees. But I would move to send a positive recommendation to the City Council on this Technical Design and Construction Standards Manual as currently, well, as drafted, but again, encouraging the City Council to be attentive to Jeff's comments.
Great, thank you for the motion, Jim.
I'll second.
Second by Joyce, thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion? All right, those in favor, Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Camille?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. Anything else on that item, Emily?
No, I really appreciate the thorough review.
Great, thank you. So with that, our next item, number 7, general correspondences.
Well, in your after the fact packet, there is a general correspondence item.
So nothing beyond our packet.
No, nothing beyond your packet.
Great, thank you. Item 8, Planning Department updates, discussion, draft SOP.
Would you like me to provide an update on the draft SOP?
If you have one prepared and are ready and willing.
Yes, thank you. So we have been talking internally about certain items that should probably be better reflected in the SOP. One of them is the late submission policy for the after the fact packet. Additionally, there were some items that were recommended out of the Saco Citizens Grievance Review Committee for inclusion in the SOP itself. So what we did as staff is we wrote up the edits that internally we think would be helpful and provide a better process, as well as those that were recommended through that grievance review committee. I can just walk you through those. They are noted in red lines, but I can walk you through the changes if you would like.
Sure, if you could real briefly.
Yes, I will be brief.
Brief. Unless the board.
Okay, under 4, number 2, order of business is page 5. We've added a planning board public hearing guidelines to the agenda list. It probably should have been reflected. We normally reflect it, so it's just a clarifying item. Under B on that same page, we've updated the meeting schedule time from 5:30 to 6 p.m. When we had first written this, you were still meeting at 5:30. For D, staff reports, we included the sentence that you see in red underlined there, basically just pointing the board back to substantial evidence definition and what can be used for substantial evidence from the MMA manual, as well as a reference, an end note, footnote there on page 6 to Maine Municipal Association Planning Board Manual. Moving on to page 8, late submission procedure. We updated, right now our cutoff time is 5 p.m. on Thursday before the Friday packet, which makes our Fridays a little bit hectic. So we are updating that. We are asking to update that from 5 p.m. on Thursday to 5 p.m. on Wednesday. I cannot promise that this will deliver earlier packets for you, but what it at least will do is make sure that we're not here late on Fridays, which we have been, even though you're not necessarily seeing that. As far as what goes into the packet for that 5 p.m. by Wednesday, a lot of that is either a secondary response, like let's say that the applicant submitted primary comment responses on time, then the city engineer gave his response, then the applicant has another thing that's pretty minimal response back. We say to that applicant, 5 p.m. Wednesday is the cutoff. In this case, it'll be Wednesday. We say Thursday right now. So it's not the primary comment response date. Additionally, what else will go in there is we tell members of the public if they are submitting something that they want in the meeting packet, we tell them they have till 5 p.m. on Thursday to put it in the electronic packet. So everyone will now be told 5 p.m. on Wednesday, just to make sure we have enough time to get this stuff together. So that is one change. And then the other thing that I'm recommending, which I saw work really well with another commission I worked with years ago, We still would give you an after-the-fact packet, just like you're seeing right here, but the chair and vice chair would go over together the packet materials, and then they'd make recommendations at the top of the board meeting for what was going to be reviewed that evening and what required further time to review, especially if an applicant came in with multiple items, which we've been seeing a few times here, multiple very late submission items that were not in response to like recently received comments or something. So that would give the chair and vice chair, I mean, they have that authority now anyway, but it would spell out the authority to go through that packet and say, well, we recommend that this item be auto-tabled if there's not enough time to review it. Just clarifying that materials shared at the meeting in hard copy and electronic format that were not included in the meeting packet. So materials, someone brings you something during public hearing and hands it to you as a hard copy item. We're just clarifying that those items get compiled and put into the more section of the meeting after the board packet as well. After the board meeting, rather. Moving down to G on that same page, legal notices. It used to reference the more section. We've updated how we've just updated the web pages, so it should just say the legal section. Moving to H, mailed meeting notifications. Really, this is to provide clarity to residents about the types of notices they receive. For most applications where development is occurring, that is not something just inside a building, but includes a structure. People are receiving 3 mailed notices. So I know there's been a lot of confusion we hear about notices, so we just want to make sure it was clarified here. Also updated to reference the correct noticing distance that was updated per city council, I think last year or the year before. Must have been last year. And then the planning department, we also get a lot of questions as to how these notices get generated. As far as the mailed notification list. So we're just clarifying that there's a computerized system that generates these. That computerized system is maintained by the city's assessing department. And we also clarify there that Lisa, a lot of times if there's a subdivision or a condominium where 1 or 2 or maybe half the condo association falls into the project notification for mailing, the notification distance for mailing. The other half of the subdivision may feel left out, or the condo association, so Lisa will manually go and add those other property owners to the list. I know there's also a lot of confusion about that, so we tried to clarify that here as well. Moving to page 12, section D, contract zoning recommendation requests. We just recommend removing that section right now because City Council is finishing their contract zone work, so we can always come with an amendment when necessary. And page 14 is an update to B1 annual training. Which is asking each planning board member to sign an acknowledgement form for your training, as well as we will be providing you certificates of completion of your training. The items that were a grievance review committee recommendation were that required training, as well as the substantial evidence under staff reports. I hope that was brief enough.
It was, thank you.
Thank you.
Board members, questions? Catherine?
Hi, on page 16, it mentions again the 5:30 start time. On page 16, under.
Sure does, yeah.
The third bullet point down.
Good catch.
We'll update that as well.
I thank you very much.
All right. With that, item 9, planning board comments. Anything thoughts, questions, concerns from board members?
Can I just ask one question?
Oh, sure.
On the SOP?
You did a
In the-
great job.
Oh, no, well, thank you. But in the past, the board has just adopted this. Do you want me to bring this back, like the adopted it a lot of the times the night I bring it to you? Do you want me to bring this back to you at the next meeting under an agenda item?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could we? Yeah, let's bring it under the,
Under the
let's-
regular, like, application reviews and public?
yeah, let's put it
okay.
under the first agenda item and the board can vote to adopt it or not. Okay.
Okay, great, thank you.
Board comments, thoughts, questions, concerns, ideas, recommendations? Emily?
I have one more planning department update.
Oh, of course, yes, I'm so sorry. I was trying to be brief.
No, thanks. Yeah, well. So the ecology school traffic monitoring reports continue. They're an ongoing item that we have listed. We did have to switch, just as a reminder, we did have to switch the engineer that was doing those quarterly reports to make sure that they were done on time. We now have a contract indicating that specifically. So you might see the VHB logo on those reports, and I just wanted to kind of share them on the screen so you know that they're, you know, the status of them essentially.
So this one here is from June? Is that? Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I could just ask Emily a question. So I'm reading about the arrivals, 9 lefts in, 1 right in. Where are they turning left from? Is that on the Buxton Road, turning left onto the Simpson Road? Or is that turning into the driveway for the ecology school?
At this time, she was monitoring the turning into the driveway because the warrant, have already established the warrant has been met for the left turn lane.
Okay.
And there's, I know
So-
previously we talked about they're under a BPI and all that for the turn lane.
So every time we read arrivals, it's going into the driveway of the,
My understanding is, yes, she was doing the driveway.
okay, got it. Thank you.
And that puts us back into September, and I already
Sure, we've
brought these to
we've
your
done
attention
those, yeah.
previously. Yep,
All right, great, thank you.
thank you.
Any other thoughts from board members? All right, well, with that, we will adjourn at 9:16 p.m. Thank you, everyone.